Daniel Hayes stared at the termination letter on his desk, the words blurring through tears he refused to let fall. 42 years old, a single father, and he just torpedoed the biggest presentation of his career in front of the entire executive board. His phone buzzed, another message from his daughter's school. Emma needs to be picked up. Again. He'd forgotten. Again. In that suffocating moment, watching his reflection in the darkened window of his corner office, Daniel understood with brutal clarity he was failing at everything that mattered. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that the woman who held his future in her hands was about to shatter every assumption he'd ever made about power, loneliness, and second chances. If you want to see how far a man can fall before he learns to stand again, stay with me until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And if you believe everyone deserves a second chance, hit that like button. Daniel Hayes had exactly 17 minutes before the most important presentation of his career, and he was currently stuck in traffic on the expressway with a daughter who wouldn't stop crying in the back seat. "I don't want to go to aftercare," Emma said for the 8th time, her voice small and cracked. "You said you'd pick me up today." "I will pick you up, sweetheart, I promise. Just—" Daniel checked his watch again. 14 minutes now. "Just today I need you to stay a little longer. Mr. Peterson will be there. You like Mr. Peterson." "I don't like Mr. Peterson. He smells like old sandwiches." Despite everything, Daniel almost smiled. She wasn't wrong. "I know, baby, I know, but Daddy has this really important meeting, and you always have important meetings." The words landed harder than she'd meant them to, probably harder than she even understood. Emma was 7. How could she possibly understand that her father was one bad quarter away from losing everything? That the presentation he was about to give, if he ever got out of this goddamn traffic, could determine whether they kept their apartment, her school, the life he'd been desperately holding together since her mother died 3 years ago? He couldn't explain that. So instead he said, "I'll make it up to you this weekend. We'll do whatever you want." "You said that last weekend." She had him there. By the time Daniel screeched into the parking garage at Vance Industries, he had 9 minutes. He kissed Emma's forehead, watched her trudge toward the aftercare entrance with her backpack dragging, and sprinted toward the elevators. His shirt was already sticking to his back. The flash drive with his presentation felt like it weighed 10 pounds in his pocket. The elevator took forever. Everyone else seemed to be moving in slow motion. Daniel checked his reflection in the polished doors. Tie crooked, hair a mess, eyes bloodshot from staying up until 3 a.m. rehearsing. He looked exactly like what he was, a man barely hanging on. "Cutting it close, Hayes." Daniel turned. Marcus Chen from accounting, perfectly pressed suit, perfectly styled hair, perfectly punchable smile. "Traffic," Daniel muttered. "Right. Traffic." Marcus made a show of checking his watch. "You know Eleanor doesn't do late. She once fired a VP for showing up 30 seconds after a meeting started. I'll be on time." "Sure you will." Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Between you and me? I heard Peterson's already got your replacement lined up. Some hotshot from Chicago, younger, cheaper, no kids." The elevator doors opened. Daniel pushed past him without responding, though his hands had gone cold. Peterson was his direct supervisor, a middle manager with delusions of empire and breath that could strip paint. If Peterson wanted him gone, Daniel was already halfway out the door. The conference room was on the 42nd floor. Daniel took the stairs. He made it with 2 minutes to spare. Barely enough time to plug in his laptop, pull up the presentation, and try to slow his hammering heart. The boardroom was all glass and chrome, with a view of the city that cost more than Daniel made in a year. The executive team was already filing in, Peterson with his tight smile, the CFO checking her phone, 2 senior VPs Daniel had only met once. And then Eleanor Vance walked in, and the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. Daniel had seen the CEO before, of course. Company meetings, passing in hallways, once in the elevator where neither of them had spoken. But he'd never been this close, never had her attention focused on him like a spotlight. She was 50, maybe 55, though it was hard to tell. Severe gray suit, dark hair pulled back without a single strand out of place, eyes that could dissect a balance sheet in seconds. Everything about Eleanor Vance screamed control, power, distance. She didn't walk into rooms. She commanded them. "Mr. Hayes." Her voice was cool, precise. I understand you have a presentation for us. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for then present. We're already behind schedule. Daniel's mouth went dry. He clicked to the first slide. Of course. So, as you can see from our Q3 numbers, customer retention in the Midwest region has... His laptop screen went black. For one horrible second, Daniel thought he'd forgotten to charge it. Then the screen flickered back to life, but wrong. All his slides were scrambled, charts displaying the wrong data, text overlapping in gibberish. A cold sweat broke out across his forehead. Is there a problem, Mr. Hayes? Eleanor's tone hadn't changed, but somehow it felt sharper. No, just a technical issue. Give me 1 second. He fumbled with the laptop, his fingers clumsy. Nothing worked. The presentation he'd spent weeks perfecting, the data he'd triple-checked, the charts he'd designed to show exactly how his strategies could save the division, all of it was corrupted, destroyed. Mr. Hayes, we don't have all day. I understand. Something's wrong with the file. If I could just... You had weeks to prepare for this presentation, Peterson cut in, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Surely you have a backup. Daniel did have a backup. On his office computer, which was 17 floors down. I can get it. Just give me 5 minutes. We don't have 5 minutes, Eleanor said. She wasn't angry. That would have been easier. She was simply stating a fact. Mr. Peterson, do you have the alternative proposal ready? Peterson's smile widened. I do. And just like that, Daniel understood. The corrupted file wasn't an accident. Peterson had sabotaged him. Probably paid someone in IT to scramble the data the moment Daniel plugged in his laptop. Also, Peterson could swoop in with his own plan, his own numbers, his own golden boy from Chicago. Daniel wanted to scream. He wanted to throw the laptop across the room. He wanted to explain that he had a daughter waiting at aftercare who smelled like strawberry shampoo and drew pictures of them holding hands, and he couldn't lose this job. He couldn't start over. He couldn't... Mr. Hayes. Eleanor was standing now. Everyone else in the room had gone silent. Do you have anything to add, or are we done here? Daniel looked at her. Really looked. And for just a moment he could have sworn he saw something flicker behind those cold eyes. Not sympathy. Not kindness. But something. Recognition, maybe. Like she knew exactly what it felt like to stand in a room full of people waiting for you to fail. We're done, Daniel said quietly. He unplugged his laptop and walked out. He didn't run. He didn't slam the door. He just left, with whatever dignity he had left. The elevator ride down felt longer than the one up. Daniel stood in the corner, staring at his distorted reflection in the metal doors. 42 years old, single father, about to be unemployed. He'd been so focused on not falling apart that he hadn't noticed he already had. His phone buzzed. Emma's school. He didn't answer. Back at his desk, Daniel sat in the dark. The office had mostly cleared out. It was past 7 now. He should leave. Should pick up Emma. Should go home and figure out how to explain to a 7-year-old that Daddy might have screwed up their entire lives. Instead, he opened his bottom drawer and pulled out the bottle of whiskey he kept for emergencies. He'd bought it the day after the funeral and hadn't touched it since. Tonight felt like the right time. He was pouring his second drink when his office phone rang. Daniel stared at it. Nobody called office lines anymore. Everything was email, Slack, texts. The phone rang again. He considered not answering. Then he picked it up. Hayes? Mr. Hayes? This is Eleanor Vance. A pause. I need to see you in my office. Now. The line went dead. Daniel set down his glass. His hands were shaking. This was it then. She was going to fire him in person. Some professional courtesy before security escorted him out. He took the elevator up. The executive floor was empty now, just dim emergency lighting and the hum of air conditioning. Eleanor's office was at the end of the hall, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Her door was open. Come in, Mr. Hayes. Close the door. Eleanor sat behind her desk, jacket off, hair slightly loosened. She looked tired. Actually tired. Not just executive tired. There were files spread across her desk, a half-empty glass of something amber beside her keyboard. Sit. Daniel sat. Do you know why I asked you here? To fire me. To fire you. Eleanor repeated the words like she was tasting them. Is that what you think you deserve? I screwed up the presentation. Your presentation was sabotaged. Peterson had IT scramble your files 30 seconds before you plugged in. I've already had him escorted out of the building. Daniel's brain stuttered. What? He's been running a side operation for 6 months, cooking numbers to make himself look good while bleeding resources from your division. He knew you were getting close to exposing him, so he decided to eliminate you first. Eleanor took a sip from her glass. Sloppy, predictable. I fired him 20 minutes ago. I don't understand. If you knew, I suspected. I didn't have proof until today. She looked at him directly. Your presentation wasn't just about retention numbers, was it? You found the discrepancies, the phantom accounts, the inflated projections. Daniel had found them. Weeks of late nights cross-referencing data that didn't add up. He thought he was losing his mind. Yes. Then why didn't you come to me directly? Because I didn't think you'd believe me. Peterson's been here 15 years. You're just the single father who leaves early to pick up his daughter, who turns down drinks with the team, who doesn't play golf or network or schmooze. Eleanor's voice was flat, but something underneath it wasn't. You're just the man everyone underestimates. The words hung in the air between them. I'm promoting you, Eleanor said. Peterson's position is yours. Better salary, better hours. Your own team. Daniel couldn't speak, couldn't process. Why? Because you do good work. Because you care about the details. Because you showed up to the most important meeting of your career looking like hell and still tried to push forward. She paused. Because I don't have time to train someone else, and I need someone I can trust. You don't know me. No, I don't. Eleanor stood, walked to the window. The city sparkled below them, a million lights hiding a million stories. But I know what it looks like when someone's trying to hold their life together with both hands. And I know what it looks like when people mistake quiet competence for weakness. She turned back to him. I need help, Mr. Hayes. Real help. Not yes men. Not politicians. Someone who will tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Why me? Because you have something to lose. She said it simply, like it was obvious. People with everything to lose don't waste time on games. They just do the work. Daniel thought about Emma, about the apartment lease due next month, about the medical bills still piling up from Sarah's cancer treatments, about how close he'd come to losing everything today. What do you need me to do? Eleanor almost smiled. Almost. First, go pick up your daughter. She's been at aftercare for 3 hours. Daniel's face went hot. How did you... I pay attention, Mr. Hayes. It's my job. She sat back down, turned to her computer. Go home. Spend time with her. Monday morning, you start your new position. He stood, legs unsteady. Thank you. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This company is bleeding, and I need to stop it. That means long hours, hard decisions. I'm not hiring you because I'm kind. I'm hiring you because I need you. Daniel nodded. He was almost to the door when she spoke again. Mr. Hayes. He turned. Eleanor wasn't looking at him. She was staring at her screen, but her hands had gone still on the keyboard. Your daughter, Emma, how is she? The question caught him completely off guard. She's good, tough. She doesn't remember much about her mother, which is probably a blessing and a curse. Yeah. Eleanor nodded once. Drive safe. Daniel left. He didn't understand what had just happened. Didn't understand why the most powerful person in the company had just handed him a lifeline. Didn't understand the look in her eyes when she asked about Emma. But he did understand one thing. Eleanor Vance wasn't what everyone thought she was. The drive to Emma's school took 20 minutes. Daniel spent the whole time trying to slow his breathing, to process. By the time he pulled up, his hands had stopped shaking. Emma was sitting on the front steps with Mr. Peterson, different Peterson, thankfully, the aftercare coordinator. She looked small, tired. When she saw Daniel's car, she didn't run to him like she used to. She just picked up her backpack and walked. I'm sorry, Daniel said as soon as she got in. Baby, I'm so sorry. I know I said, it's okay. It wasn't okay. They both knew it. I got a promotion today, Daniel said. Better hours. I'll be home more. We can have breakfast together. I can pick you up from school." Emma looked at him, 7 years old and already so good at seeing through lies. "You said that before." "I know, but this time, Daddy, it's okay. I know your work is important." And that was worse, so much worse than anger or tears. She'd already learned to expect disappointment, already learned to make herself smaller to fit around his failure. "No," Daniel said. "No, it's not okay. You're important. You're the most important thing in my life, and I've been screwing this up." He pulled over. They were 2 blocks from their apartment, but he couldn't drive anymore. He turned to Emma, really looked at her. She had Sarah's eyes, Sarah's smile when she chose to use it. "I'm going to do better. I swear to you, starting now." Emma studied him. "Can we get pizza?" Daniel laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time in months. Yeah, we can get pizza." They got pizza, the good kind, from the place that delivered late and didn't skimp on toppings. They ate it on the couch, watched a movie Emma had seen 6 times but never got tired of. Daniel let her fall asleep against his shoulder, her breathing slow and steady. He carried her to bed, tucked her in. There was a drawing on her nightstand, a stick figure of a man, and a smaller stick figure holding hands. The man had a briefcase. The smaller one had a backpack. "My dad," it said at the bottom, in Emma's careful letters. "He works hard." Daniel sat on the edge of her bed, watching her sleep. She looked so much like Sarah. Same dark hair, same way of frowning even in dreams. Sarah had been gone 3 years, but there were days it felt like yesterday. Days the grief hit him so hard he could barely breathe. But tonight, watching his daughter sleep, Daniel felt something else. Something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Hope. He went back to the living room, picked up his phone. 3 missed calls from work friends, people who'd already heard about Peterson's firing, wanted gossip. Daniel deleted them. He wasn't interested in gossip. He had work tomorrow, a new position, a chance to prove Eleanor right. He had his daughter, who deserved better than the scraps of attention he'd been giving her. He had a second chance. Daniel cleaned up the pizza boxes, locked the door, turned off the lights. He stood at Emma's doorway one more time, watching her breathe. "I'm going to do better," he whispered. "I promise." Monday morning came too fast and too slow. Daniel dropped Emma at school early, actually walked her to her classroom, met her teacher properly for the first time in months. Mrs. Ramirez looked surprised to see him. "Mr. Hayes, what a nice surprise." "I'll be picking Emma up today," Daniel said, "and tomorrow, and every day, if I can manage it." Mrs. Ramirez smiled. "She'll like that." At the office, Daniel's new workspace was 3 floors up. Bigger, better view. His name was already on the door. Inside, he found a note on his desk. Monday, 9 a.m. My office. EV. Eleanor's office looked different in daylight, less imposing. She was already at her desk, reading, glasses on, 3 screens running simultaneously. "Mr. Hayes, sit." Daniel sat. "I need you to audit the entire Midwest division, every contract, every account, every expenditure for the last 18 months. Peterson wasn't working alone, and I need to know who else was involved. That's going to take 4 weeks. That's what you have." Eleanor looked at him over her glasses. "Can you do it?" Daniel thought about the late nights, the complexity, the political landmines. "Yes." "Good. You'll report directly to me, no intermediaries. If you find something, I want to know immediately. If someone tries to block you, I want to know who." "Understood." Eleanor went back to her screens. "That's all." Daniel stood. He was at the door when she spoke again. "Mr. Hayes." "Yes?" "Don't forget to pick up your daughter." He looked back. Eleanor wasn't smiling, but something in her expression had softened, just slightly. "I won't." The next 4 weeks were brutal. Daniel worked longer hours than he thought possible, but different hours. He came in after dropping Emma at school, left in time to pick her up. Did his deep analysis after she went to bed, surviving on coffee and stubbornness. And he found things. Bad things. Peterson had been creative. Daniel had to give him that. Phantom vendors. Inflated invoices. kickbacks disguised as consulting fees. The web went deeper than anyone suspected, involving at least 7 people across 4 departments. Daniel documented everything, built his case carefully, and every few days he'd get a message from Eleanor. Status update, 5 p.m. My office. These meetings were strange. Technically, they were about work. Daniel would present his findings. Eleanor would ask sharp questions, make decisions. But sometimes the conversations would drift. Your daughter, Emma, how old is she? 7. That's a good age. Daniel waited for more, but Eleanor had already moved on to the next item. He learned not to push. Eleanor Vance gave information in crumbs, never meals. But the crumbs added up. She asked about Emma's school, her favorite subjects, whether she'd made friends. She never asked about Sarah, never asked about the before, always the now, the present, the practical. And slowly Daniel began to understand. Eleanor wasn't making small talk. She was learning, cataloging, building a picture of who he was when he wasn't at work. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt oddly like being seen. 3 weeks into the audit, Daniel found the smoking gun. A series of emails between Peterson and a senior VP named Richards. Explicit, damning, enough to not just fire people but potentially bring criminal charges. He went to Eleanor immediately. She read the emails twice. Her face never changed. Richards has been with this company 23 years, she said finally. I know. He has a wife, 3 kids, grandchildren. I know. Eleanor looked at him. Are you certain about this? Yes. She nodded once. Then we move forward. I'll have legal and HR coordinate. This goes to the board tomorrow. Daniel expected her to dismiss him. Instead, she stood, walked to her window. Do you know why I built this company, Mr. Hayes? It wasn't really a question, but Daniel shook his head anyway. Because I wanted to create something that couldn't be taken away. Something that was mine. She touched the glass lightly. I was 27, divorced, no money, no connections. Just an idea and too much stubbornness to quit. I didn't know that. No one does. People see the success. They don't see the 20-hour days, the loans I couldn't repay, the investors who laughed me out of rooms. She turned back to him. They don't see how close I came to losing everything, multiple times. Why are you telling me this? Eleanor didn't answer directly. You have a daughter who needs you, a life outside these walls. Don't make the same mistakes I did. What mistakes? Thinking that success means sacrifice, that you have to choose between being good at your job and being good at life. Her voice was quiet. You don't. But no one tells you that until it's too late. Daniel didn't know what to say. He'd never heard Eleanor talk like this, never seen her guard drop even slightly. Thank you, he said finally. Eleanor's mask slipped back into place. Finish the report. I need everything ready for the board meeting. Daniel left, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the woman everyone feared was actually just tired, lonely, human. Richards was fired 2 days later. So were 4 other executives. The scandal made the business section of every major paper. Eleanor handled it with her usual precision. Press conference, damage control, restructuring plan. Daniel watched from the sidelines, impressed despite himself. She didn't flinch, didn't deflect. She took responsibility, explained the new oversight protocols, and moved forward. That's how you survive, one of the other managers told him. Eleanor doesn't waste time on regret. She just fixes things. But Daniel had seen behind the curtain now. He knew what it cost her to stand there, composed, while her company bled reputation. The night after the press conference, his office phone rang at 8 p.m. Hayes? Mr. Hayes, Eleanor Vance, are you still in the building? Yes. I need to drop some files by your office. Personnel reviews, I'd like your input. She showed up 15 minutes later. No files. I lied, Eleanor said, standing in his doorway. I don't have files. Daniel waited. She paused. Eleanor Vance never paused. I wanted to thank you for the work you did, for being thorough, for another pause, for being honest. It's my job. No, your job is to do what you're told and not ask questions. You went beyond that. She looked at him directly. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. No one does the right thing just because it's right. There's always an angle, a reason. Daniel thought about Emma, about the example he wanted to set, about Sarah, who taught him that integrity wasn't optional. Maybe I'm just not that complicated. Eleanor almost smiled. Everyone's complicated, Mr. Hayes. Some of us are just better at hiding it. She turned to leave, then stopped. Do you have dinner plans? What? Dinner plans. Do you have them? No. I was just going to pick up Emma and bring her. Daniel's brain stuttered. I'm sorry? Bring your daughter. There's a restaurant, Italian, good food, quiet. We can discuss the restructuring plan. Eleanor was already pulling out her phone. 7:30? You want me to bring my 7-year-old to a business dinner? Why not? You talk about her constantly. I'd like to meet her. And before Daniel could process what was happening, Eleanor had texted him an address and walked away. He stared at his phone, read the message 3 times. Eleanor Vance, CEO, corporate ice queen, wanted to have dinner with him and his daughter. This was insane. This was inappropriate. This was actually happening, apparently. Daniel picked up Emma at 5:30, which gave him exactly 2 hours to figure out how to explain this situation. His 7-year-old was strapped into her booster seat, humming something from a cartoon, completely unaware that her father was having a minor crisis in the front seat. So, kiddo, Daniel started, trying to sound casual, how would you feel about going to a restaurant tonight? A nice one. Emma stopped humming. Like with the fancy napkins? Yeah, with the fancy napkins. Can I get spaghetti? You can get whatever you want. Then, okay. She went back to humming, crisis averted on her end at least. Daniel's crisis was just beginning. He drove home, got Emma changed into her favorite dress, the blue one with flowers that Sarah had bought her 2 birthdays ago, still fitting somehow. He put on a clean shirt, ditched the tie, checked his reflection 3 times like a teenager going on a first date, which this wasn't. This was a business dinner with his boss and his daughter. Completely normal, totally professional. He was sweating through his shirt before they even left the apartment. The restaurant was in the old district, tucked between a bookstore and a wine shop. Small, intimate, the kind of place Daniel couldn't afford on his old salary. The hostess smiled when they walked in. Mr. Hayes? Miss Vance is already here. Of course she was. Eleanor probably arrived everywhere 15 minutes early just to establish dominance. She was sitting at a corner table, still in her work clothes but with her jacket off, reading something on her phone. She looked up when they approached, and for just a second Daniel saw something cross her face. Surprise, maybe, or uncertainty. Then it was gone. Mr. Hayes, and this must be Emma. Emma, who is usually shy around strangers, tilted her head and studied Eleanor with the frank assessment only children can pull off. You're really tall. Emma, Daniel warned, but Eleanor smiled. Actually smiled, not the corporate approximation she used in meetings. I am. It's useful for reaching high shelves. My dad has to use a step stool. Emma. What? You do? Eleanor's smile widened. Please, sit. They sat. A waiter appeared immediately. Clearly, Eleanor had that effect on people. He handed out menus, rattled off specials, disappeared. So, Eleanor said, focusing on Emma, your father tells me you're in 2nd grade. Yeah, Mrs. Ramirez's class. Do you like it? Emma shrugged. It's okay. We're learning multiplication, which is hard, but I'm good at reading. Reading is important. What do you like to read? Everything, but mostly books about animals. Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? I did not know that. Yeah, and they can fit through any space bigger than their beak. That's the only hard part of their body. Emma was warming up now, hands gesturing. And they're really smart. They can solve puzzles and open jars and remember people. Daniel watched Eleanor listen to his daughter explain octopus intelligence with the same attention she gave quarterly reports. It was surreal. This morning she'd been firing executives. Tonight she was learning about cephalopods. You seem very knowledgeable about octopuses, Eleanor said. I want to be a marine biologist when I grow up. Or a veterinarian. I haven't decided yet. Those are both excellent choices. The waiter returned. Emma ordered spaghetti with meatballs and a Shirley Temple, eyes wide at being allowed to order her own drink. Daniel got the chicken, Eleanor the salmon. Wine for the adults, a bottle that probably cost more than Daniel's grocery budget. When the waiter left, Emma turned to Eleanor with the directness that made Daniel's stomach drop. "Are you my dad's boss?" "I am." "Is he good at his job?" "Emma, you can't just—" "He's very good at his job," Eleanor said. "One of the best people I work with." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good, because he works really hard, sometimes too hard." "Is that so?" "Yeah, he falls asleep on the couch a lot, and sometimes he forgets to eat lunch." "Emma." "What?" "You do." Eleanor was watching him now, something unreadable in her expression. "Your daughter makes some valid observations." "She's 7. She doesn't understand—" "I understand you don't take care of yourself," Emma interrupted. "Mrs. Ramirez says adults are bad at that." Eleanor actually laughed. Not the polite corporate chuckle, a real laugh, surprised out of her. "Mrs. Ramirez sounds wise." Their food arrived. For a few minutes they ate in relative silence. Emma attacked her spaghetti with enthusiasm, getting sauce on her chin. Daniel tried to eat normally while being hyper-aware of every movement, every word. This was the strangest evening of his life. "So, Emma," Eleanor said eventually, "do you like having your father pick you up from school?" "Yeah, he's been doing it every day now. We got pizza last week and he let me stay up late on Friday to watch a movie." "Sounds nice." "It is." Emma took a sip of her Shirley Temple, the cherry bobbing. "He used to be really busy, like all the time, but now he's less busy." "Do you know why that changed?" Emma shrugged. "He said he got a promotion. I don't really know what that means, but it means he's home more, so it's good." Eleanor glanced at Daniel. Something passed between them. Acknowledgement, maybe, of what he'd been willing to sacrifice before. What he'd almost lost. "Your father works for me," Eleanor said carefully. "So if he ever gets too busy again, you can call my office and tell me. I'll make sure he comes home on time." Emma's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Really." "Can I have your number?" "Emma, you're not calling Ms. Vance's—" Eleanor was already pulling out her business card. She wrote something on the back, handed it to Emma. "That's my direct line. Office hours only, please." Emma studied the card like it was treasure. "Thank you." Daniel didn't know whether to be mortified or touched. Probably both. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. Emma talked about school, her friends, a hamster in their classroom named Mr. Whiskers who kept escaping his cage. Eleanor listened to all of it, asked questions, treated Emma's rambling stories with the same seriousness she'd give a board presentation. And Daniel watched both of them, feeling something shift in his chest. Something he didn't have words for yet. After dinner, Emma excused herself to the bathroom. The moment she was out of earshot, Eleanor's expression changed. The warmth slipped away, replaced by something harder to read. "She's lovely," Eleanor said quietly. "Thank you." "You're doing a good job with her." "I'm trying. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water." "That's parenting, I imagine." Eleanor swirled her wine. "I wouldn't know. I never had children." The way she said it, flat, matter-of-fact, couldn't quite hide the edge underneath. Daniel knew he should leave it alone, should change the subject back to work, back to safe territory. Instead he asked, "Did you want them?" Eleanor looked at him, really looked, the way she had that night in her office when she'd promoted him. Once, a long time ago. What happened? Life. Choices. A husband who wanted a wife who stayed home and looked pretty at parties. She took a sip of wine. "I wanted to build something. We couldn't reconcile those two visions." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I got what I wanted. A company. Success. Power." Her smile was knife-thin. What more could anyone ask for? The bitterness in her voice was so raw, so unexpected, that Daniel didn't know how to respond. Before he could try, Emma bounded back to the table. "The bathroom has fancy soap that smells like flowers," she announced. "Very fancy," Eleanor agreed, and just like that, the mask was back. They left shortly after. Eleanor paid, waving off Daniel's protests. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cool. Emma was yawning, leaning against Daniel's leg. "Thank you for dinner," Daniel said. "This was unexpected. But not unwelcome, I hope." "No, not unwelcome." Eleanor crouched down to Emma's level. "It was very nice to meet you, Emma. Thank you for teaching me about octopuses." Emma, half asleep, gave her a sleepy smile. "You're nicer than I thought you'd be." "Emma!" But Eleanor laughed again. "What did you think I'd be like?" "Dad said you were scary. Daniel wanted to die. Right there on the sidewalk, just cease to exist." "I did not say that. You said she was intimidating, and that's basically the same thing." Eleanor stood, and there was something in her eyes that might have been amusement. "Your father isn't wrong. I can be scary when I need to be." "But not tonight?" "Not tonight." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good." They said their goodbyes. Daniel carried Emma to the car, buckled her in. She was asleep before they left the parking lot. The drive home was quiet. Daniel kept replaying the evening in his head, trying to make sense of it. His boss had just had dinner with his daughter, had laughed at her stories, had given her a phone number for emergencies, had looked at Daniel like he was more than just an employee. What the hell was happening? Back at the apartment, Daniel carried Emma to bed, pulled off her shoes, covered her with blankets. She stirred just enough to mumble, "I like her. She's nice." "Yeah," Daniel whispered. "She is." He went to his own room but couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Eleanor's face when she talked about her ex-husband. The way she'd said, "I got what I wanted," like it was both true and the biggest lie she'd ever told. She was lonely. Daniel understood that now. All that power, all that success, and she was still fundamentally alone. He knew that feeling. Had lived it for 3 years. Since Sarah died, Daniel's world had shrunk to 2 people, him and Emma. Work was just work. Friends had drifted away. Family lived too far to matter. It was easier that way. Simpler. Less chance of getting hurt again. But tonight, watching Eleanor smile at his daughter's octopus facts, something had cracked open in his chest. Some part of him that had been frozen since the funeral. He didn't know what to do with that feeling. Didn't know if he should do anything at all. So he did what he always did when emotions got too complicated. He went back to work. The next morning, Daniel dropped Emma at school and arrived at the office by 8. There was already an email waiting from Eleanor. Status meeting, 9 a.m. My office. He gathered his reports, his notes, his coffee. Took the elevator up. Eleanor's assistant waved him through. Eleanor was on the phone, speaking rapid French to someone. She gestured for Daniel to sit, finished her conversation, hung up. "Paris office," she said by way of explanation. "They're having issues with the new supplier contracts. Anything I can help with?" "Not unless you speak French and have a background in international trade law." She pulled up something on her computer. "I wanted to discuss the restructuring timeline. We're moving faster than anticipated." They spent the next hour deep in logistics, hiring schedules, department mergers, budget reallocation. It was easier, this kind of conversation. Clear parameters, defined outcomes. But then Eleanor said, "Your daughter, Emma, she really is lovely." And they were back in uncertain territory. "Thank you. She liked you too." "Did she?" "She told me you were nice." High praise from a 7-year-old. Eleanor's expression softened. "I enjoyed meeting her. It's been a long time since I've had a conversation about octopuses." "She can talk about them for hours. Fair warning. I'll keep that in mind." Eleanor paused. "I meant what I said. About calling if I work you too hard. I don't want you sacrificing your time with her for this job." "I appreciate that." "Do you believe me?" The question caught him off guard. "Should I?" "Most people don't. They think I say things I don't mean, that it's all just corporate politics." "Is it?" Eleanor looked at him. "No, Mr. Hayes, with you, it's not." The weight of those words settled between them. Daniel didn't know what to say, didn't know what she was really telling him. "I should get back to work," he said finally. "Yes?" "Of course." Eleanor was already turning back to her screens, professional mask sliding into place. "I'll send you the updated timelines this afternoon." Daniel left. But he couldn't shake the feeling that they'd been talking about 2 completely different things. The week passed in a blur of meetings and deadlines. Daniel fell into a rhythm, Mornings with Emma, days at the office, evenings reclaimed from the chaos. He started cooking real dinners again, helped with homework, read bedtime stories. And every few days, Eleanor would summon him to her office, ostensibly for work. But the conversations always drifted. She'd ask about Emma, about Daniel's life, about his thoughts on things that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings. He learned she ran 5 miles every morning at 6 a.m., that she'd lived in Paris for 3 years, that she could play piano but never did anymore, that she preferred red wine to white, old books to new ones, silence to small talk. She was opening up piece by piece, and Daniel found himself doing the same. He told her about Sarah, about the cancer, the treatments, the hospital rooms that smelled like bleach and despair, about holding his wife's hand while she died, promising her he'd take care of Emma, wondering how the hell he was supposed to keep that promise alone. Eleanor listened, didn't offer platitudes or empty comfort, just listened. "My mother died when I was 12, she said one evening. They'd stayed late, working through budget projections. Heart attack, sudden. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." But the way she said it suggested time hadn't actually healed much. "My father remarried 6 months later. I never forgave him for that." 6 months isn't very long. No, it's not. Eleanor closed her laptop. "I used to think he didn't love her, that she was replaceable. But now I wonder if he was just lonely. If he couldn't stand being alone with his grief. Maybe both things were true." "Maybe." She looked tired suddenly. "Do you get lonely, Mr. Hayes?" The question should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like relief. "Yes," Daniel admitted. "Every day." "How do you manage it?" "I don't, really. I just keep moving. Focus on Emma. Tell myself it gets easier." "Does it?" "Not really. I just get better at pretending." Eleanor nodded slowly. "I understand that." They sat in silence for a while. The office was empty now, just the hum of computers and distant traffic. "Would you like to get dinner?" Eleanor asked suddenly. Daniel's heart jumped. "Like, now? Unless you need to get home." "No, Emma's at a sleepover, first one in months. She was so excited." He was rambling. "So, yes, dinner would be fine." They went to a small Thai place 3 blocks from the office. Nothing fancy, just plastic chairs and laminated menus, and the best pad thai Daniel had ever tasted. Eleanor ordered like she'd been there before. "You come here often?" Daniel asked. "Every Tuesday for the last 8 years. The owner's daughter is at Harvard now. I wrote her recommendation letter." "Of course you did." Eleanor smiled. "I'm not just a corporate robot, Mr. Hayes. I'm starting to realize that." They talked through dinner, not about work, about everything else. Books, movies, places they'd traveled. Eleanor had been everywhere, Tokyo, London, Sydney, Buenos Aires. Daniel had barely left the state. "You should travel," Eleanor said. "Take Emma somewhere. Show her the world." "On my salary?" "On your new salary, the one that comes with the promotion I'm giving you next month." Daniel nearly choked on his beer. "What promotion?" "Director of Operations. It's time. You've earned it." "Eleanor, I've only been in my current position for 6 weeks." "I know. And in that time, you've reorganized 3 departments, identified $8 million in cost savings, and somehow still managed to pick up your daughter every day at 3:15. She leaned forward. "You're good at this, Daniel. Better than anyone I've worked with in years. Stop underselling yourself." It was the first time she'd used his first name. Daniel noticed. Wondered if she noticed too. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't thank me. Just keep doing what you're doing." They finished dinner, walked back toward the office parking garage. It was late now, streets mostly empty. Eleanor had her hands in her pockets, looking more relaxed than Daniel had ever seen her. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. "Of course." "Why did you invite Emma to dinner that night?" Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know. It was impulsive. I'm not usually impulsive." "I'd noticed. I think I wanted to see what your life looked like, outside these walls, outside the spreadsheets and meetings and corporate bullshit." She stopped walking. "I wanted to remember what it felt like to be around people who were just real." "And were we? Real?" "Yes." Eleanor turned to face him. Painfully real. They were standing under a streetlight, close enough that Daniel could see the flecks of gold in her gray eyes. Close enough to notice the faint scar on her left eyebrow. Close enough that his pulse was doing something erratic. "I should go," Eleanor said, but she didn't move. "Yeah, me too." Neither of them moved. "Daniel? Yeah? This is complicated." "I know. I'm your boss. This crosses every professional boundary." "I know that too." "We should stop, before it becomes something we can't uncomplicate." "Probably." Eleanor reached out, hesitated, then very gently touched his hand, just her fingers against his. The contact was electric. "I haven't felt this in a very long time," she said quietly. "Felt what?" "Like a person, not a CEO, not a brand, just Eleanor." Daniel turned his hand over, laced his fingers through hers. "I like Eleanor." "You barely know Eleanor." "Then let me." She looked at their joined hands, then back at his face. Something in her expression cracked. "This is a terrible idea. Probably the worst. We'll regret it. Maybe." "Daniel?" "Eleanor." She kissed him. Or he kissed her. Later, Daniel wouldn't be able to say who moved first. It didn't matter. What mattered was the way she fit against him, the way she tasted like wine and something sweeter, the way the entire world narrowed to this moment, this person, this impossible thing happening between them. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Eleanor's carefully constructed composure was completely gone. She looked young suddenly, uncertain, scared. "I don't do this," she said. "Do what?" "This. Feelings. Vulnerability. I built my entire life around not needing anyone. How's that working out for you?" Eleanor laughed, but it came out shaky. "Terribly, as it turns out." Daniel cupped her face, thumbs stroking her cheekbones. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight." "No?" "No, we can just see what happens." "I'm not good at seeing what happens. I like plans, strategies, clear outcomes." "I know, but maybe try it anyway." Eleanor closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "This is going to get messy. It already is messy. People will talk. Let them. The board will have opinions. Screw the board." That got a real laugh. "You're a bad influence, Mr. Hayes." "Good. You need one." They kissed again, slower this time, less urgent, more certain. When they finally pulled apart, Eleanor rested her forehead against his. "I should really go," she whispered. "Okay. I mean it. I believe you." She didn't move for another minute. Then she stepped back, smoothing her hair with shaking hands. "This conversation didn't happen." "What conversation?" "Exactly." But she was smiling. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night, Eleanor." He watched her walk to her car, watched her drive away. Then he stood under that streetlight for another 5 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. His boss had just kissed him. He had just kissed his boss. They'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and Daniel couldn't bring himself to care. He drove home in a daze, let himself into the empty apartment, stood in Emma's room for a while, looking at her drawings, her stuffed animals, the life he'd built for them. This thing with Eleanor, it was reckless, dangerous, could blow up both their careers if it went wrong. But for the first time since Sarah died, Daniel felt something other than grief and exhaustion. He felt alive, awake, like he'd been sleepwalking through the last 3 years and had finally opened his eyes. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop overthinking. Sleep well." Daniel smiled, saved the number under a simple initial, E. Then he went to bed, and for the first time in recent memory, actually slept well. The next morning, Daniel woke up convinced he'd imagined the whole thing. The kiss, the conversation, the way Eleanor had looked at him like he was the only person in the world who mattered. It felt too surreal, too impossible. Then he checked his phone and saw another text from E. "Coffee on your desk. Don't read into it." He laughed out loud in his empty bedroom. Emma came home from her sleepover that afternoon, full of stories about staying up until midnight and eating too much candy. Daniel made her grilled cheese and listened to her ramble about her friend Sophia's cat and how they'd watched 3 movies in a row. You seem happy, Emma observed, swinging her legs from the kitchen chair. I am happy. Why? Do I need a reason? You usually have reasons. You're very logical. She said it like she'd heard someone else describe him that way. Probably Mrs. Ramirez. Well, maybe I'm just happy to have you home. Emma considered this. Okay, that's a good reason. Monday morning arrived with the kind of dread Daniel hadn't felt in weeks. He had to see Eleanor, had to act normal, had to pretend Friday night hadn't completely rewired something fundamental in his brain. The coffee was waiting on his desk exactly as promised. No note, just a cup from the expensive place 2 blocks over, his order exactly right. He was halfway through it when his office phone rang. Hayes? Conference room B, 10 minutes. Eleanor's voice was pure business. And bring the Richardson file. Click. Daniel stared at the phone. So that was how this was going to go. Pretend nothing happened. Maintain professional distance. He could do that. Probably. Conference room B was small, used mostly for private meetings. When Daniel arrived, Eleanor was already there, door closed, blinds drawn. She was standing by the window, arms crossed, looking every inch the corporate executive. Close the door, she said without turning around. Daniel closed the door. Lock it. He locked it. Eleanor turned. Her expression was carefully neutral, but her hands were fidgeting with her watch, a tell Daniel had learned to recognize. We need to establish ground rules, she said. Okay. At work, nothing changes. You report to me. I'm your boss. We maintain complete professionalism. Agreed. No one can know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The board would have a field day. HR would lose their minds, and it would compromise both our positions. I understand. Outside of work, Eleanor paused, and for just a second, the mask slipped. Outside of work, I'd like to see where this goes. If you're willing. I'm willing? It won't be easy. I'm not easy. I'm controlling and difficult, and I've been alone so long I've forgotten how to be anything else. Daniel crossed the room, stopping just short of touching her. I'm a single father with baggage and a 7-year-old who will ask you a million questions about octopuses. I fall asleep on the couch and forget to eat lunch. We're both disasters. Eleanor's lips twitched. When you put it that way. So we're doing this? Apparently we're doing this. Okay then. They stood there, close but not touching, the weight of what they were agreeing to settling between them. I haven't dated anyone since my divorce, Eleanor said quietly. That was 15 years ago. I haven't dated anyone since Sarah died. 3 years. We're both out of practice. Completely. Eleanor reached out, straightened his tie, even though it didn't need straightening. Don't make me regret this, Daniel. I'll do my best. She kissed him then, quick and fierce, then stepped back and was all business again. The Richardson file. Walk me through the latest numbers. Just like that, they were boss and employee again. Daniel's head was spinning, but he pulled out the file and started talking projections and cost analyses. Eleanor asked sharp questions, made notes, approved his recommendations. 20 minutes later, they left the conference room separately. No one would have guessed anything had changed, but everything had changed. The next few weeks developed a rhythm. At work, they were consummate professionals. Daniel reported to Eleanor. She made decisions. They had perfectly normal business interactions. But the late-night texts started. Nothing inappropriate, just thoughts, observations, small pieces of themselves. Emma asked if you eat vegetables. I told her you probably survive on coffee and spreadsheets. D, tell her I had a salad for lunch today. I'm very responsible. E, she doesn't believe you. D, smart kid. They had dinner again 2 weeks later, just the two of them this time, at that same Thai place. Eleanor looked different in casual clothes. Jeans and a sweater, hair down. Younger, less armored. This feels like a date, Daniel said. That's because it is a date. Okay, just checking, Eleanor smiled. How's Emma? Good. She got an A on her science project, something about plant growth and sunlight. She's smart. Takes after her mom. Eleanor reached across the table, took his hand. You can talk about her, Sarah. I'm not threatened by your past. It doesn't bother you? Why would it? She was important to you. She gave you Emma. I'd be worried if you didn't still care about her. Daniel squeezed her hand. Most people don't get that. Most people are idiots. They talked through dinner about everything and nothing. Eleanor told him about growing up in a small town in Montana, about her father who worked construction and drank too much, about putting herself through college with scholarships and 3 part-time jobs. Everyone thinks I came from money, she said. They see the suits and the success and assume it was handed to me. But it wasn't. Not even close. I wore the same dress to every interview for a year, ate ramen for dinner most nights, shared an apartment with 4 other people. Eleanor's smile was sharp. Every executive who ever underestimated me because I was young or female or didn't come from the right background, I made sure to prove them wrong. Is that why you're so hard on people? I'm hard on people because mediocrity is expensive, but yes, maybe also because I had to be twice as good to get half the credit. Daniel understood that, had lived his own version of it. The single dad who left early for school pickups, who turned down drinks with the team, who everyone assumed wasn't serious about his career. We're more alike than I realized, he said. Yes? Eleanor looked at him. We are. When they left the restaurant, Eleanor drove them to a park overlooking the river. The city lights reflected on the water, turning everything gold and silver. I used to come here when I first moved to the city, Eleanor said. They were sitting on a bench, her head on his shoulder. When everything felt overwhelming, when I wanted to quit. Why didn't you? Spite, mostly, and fear of proving my father right. What did he say? That I'd fail, that I'd come crawling back, that women like me, women from nowhere with big ideas, always crashed and burned. She was quiet for a moment. He died 5 years ago. I never told him I'd proven him wrong. Did you want to? Every single day. Daniel kissed the top of her head. For what it's worth, I think you're extraordinary. You have to say that. We're dating. I don't have to say anything, but I mean it. Eleanor tilted her head up, kissed him properly. They stayed like that for a while, just existing in the moment, the city humming around them. I should tell you something, Eleanor said eventually. Okay. The board is pushing me to step down. Daniel pulled back to look at her. What? They think I'm too aggressive, too unwilling to compromise. The Peterson scandal didn't help. They're worried about my judgment. Her voice was carefully controlled. There's a vote next month. If it goes against me, I'm out. Eleanor, I had no idea. Nobody does. I've been fighting it quietly. She stood, wrapped her arms around herself. 23 years building this company, and they want to replace me with some yes man who'll prioritize shareholders over employees. What can I do? Nothing. This is my battle. The hell it is. Daniel stood too. You're not alone in this. Daniel, you can't get involved. It'll only make things worse. They already think I play favorites. Do you? With you, absolutely. She said it without hesitation. You're the best hire I've made in years, but they won't see it that way. Daniel knew she was right. Knew that him defending her would only feed the narrative that she let personal feelings cloud her judgment. But the idea of standing by while the board forced her out made him furious. There has to be something, he said. There isn't, not without risking your career too. Eleanor cupped his face. Promise me you'll stay out of it. Eleanor, promise me, Daniel. He wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but the look in her eyes stopped him. Okay. Promise. They drove back in silence. When Eleanor dropped him at his car, she kissed him goodbye like it might be the last time. I'll see you tomorrow, Daniel said. Yes, tomorrow. But when tomorrow came, Eleanor wasn't at the office. Her assistant said she was working from home. The day after, the same. By the 3rd day, Daniel was getting worried. He texted her, "Are you okay?" No response. He called. Voicemail. On the 4th day, Daniel broke his promise. He went to the board chairman's office. Walter Crawford was 70, silver-haired, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked up when Daniel knocked. "Mr. Hayes, what can I do for you?" "I want to talk about Eleanor Vance." Crawford's expression didn't change. "That's not appropriate." "Neither is forcing out the best CEO this company has ever had. Ms. Vance's performance is a matter for the board, not her performance is exemplary. She's grown revenue by 40% in 5 years. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. She rooted out corruption that would have cost us millions. Daniel knew he was crossing a line but couldn't stop. What exactly is the problem? Crawford leaned back in his chair. The problem, Mr. Hayes, is that Eleanor doesn't play well with others. She makes enemies. She refuses to compromise on her vision, even when it costs us valuable partnerships. She has integrity. She has pride. There's a difference. Crawford's smile was thin. I appreciate your loyalty, but this decision has already been made. The vote is a formality. Then why have it? Because we follow procedure. Now, unless you have actual business to discuss, I suggest you return to your duties. Daniel left, feeling like he'd made everything worse. He'd broken his promise to Eleanor, pissed off the board chairman, and accomplished exactly nothing. His phone rang as he reached his office. Eleanor. What the hell did you just do? Her voice was ice. I tried to help. By going to Crawford behind my back? She was furious. I told you to stay out of it. I couldn't just do nothing. So instead you made me look weak, like I need someone to fight my battles. That's not what I... Crawford just called me. Wanted to know if my pet project speaks for me now. Do you understand what you've done? Daniel felt sick. Eleanor, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't undo the ammunition you just handed them. Her voice cracked. I thought you understood. I thought you got it. I do understand. No, you don't. If you did, you'd have trusted me to handle my own career. The line went dead. Daniel tried calling back, voicemail, texted. No response. By the end of the day, he was desperate enough to drive to her apartment. She lived in a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel. The doorman knew who Daniel was, apparently, because he let him up without calling ahead. Eleanor answered on the third knock. She looked exhausted, no makeup, hair pulled back, wearing sweats Daniel had never seen her in. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know, but I needed to apologize, in person. You apologized. I heard you. Eleanor, please. I screwed up. I know that. I care about you, and I couldn't stand watching them tear you down. So you decided to help them do it? The words hit like a physical blow. That's not fair. Isn't it? Eleanor's eyes were red. Crawford's already using your little visit as evidence that I can't maintain professional boundaries, that I let personal feelings compromise my judgment. Then we'll prove him wrong. How? By pretending this doesn't exist? She gestured between them. We can't, Daniel. Everyone's already suspicious. Your promotion, the projects I assign you, the closed-door meetings. They're building a case, and you just gave them the smoking gun. Daniel felt the ground shifting under his feet. What are you saying? I'm saying this was a mistake. Us, all of it. You don't mean that, don't I? But her voice wavered. I've spent 23 years building something that matters. I can't throw it away for what? For me? Eleanor looked away. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? I don't know. I'm tired and stressed, and I don't know how to do this. She pressed her hands to her face. I don't know how to be a CEO and a person at the same time. Every time I try, something breaks. Daniel stepped closer, gently pulled her hands down. Then maybe stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to control everything. I can't. It's who I am. It's who you think you have to be. There's a difference. Eleanor's composure finally cracked. She made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. I'm going to lose everything. The company, the board seat, my reputation, everything I've worked for. You're not going to lose it. You don't know that. No, but I know you, and I know you don't give up. He pulled her into his arms. She resisted for half a second, then collapsed against him, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. They stood like that for a long time. Eventually, Eleanor pulled back, wiped her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. For what I said, you were trying to help. I went about it the wrong way. Yes, you did, but your heart was in the right place. She managed a weak smile. Even if your execution was terrible, I promise to be less terrible in the future. I'll hold you to that. They moved to her couch. Eleanor leaned against him, exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. What happens now? Daniel asked. The vote happens. I probably lose. Then I figure out what my life looks like without the thing that's defined me for 2 decades. That sounds terrifying. It is. What if you win? Then I keep fighting, keep proving myself, keep pretending I'm not exhausted down to my bones. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Do you ever think about walking away? On your own terms? Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I imagine what it would be like to just stop, to not carry the weight of 1,000 people's livelihoods. Eleanor laughed softly. But then morning comes, and I remember I don't know how to be anything else. You're more than your job. Am I? Without the company, who is Eleanor Vance? I honestly don't know. Daniel thought about his own life, how completely he'd defined himself as a husband, then a father, then an employee, how little space he'd left for just being Daniel. Maybe that's something we both need to figure out, he said. Eleanor looked up at him. How'd you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just as lost as you are. Then we'll be lost together. She kissed him, and it felt different this time. Less desperate, more certain, like they were choosing each other despite all the reasons not to. They fell asleep on her couch, tangled together, the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling. It wasn't a solution. Wasn't going to fix the board vote or the office politics or any of the 100 complications waiting for them. But it was real and honest. And for the first time in weeks, Eleanor looked peaceful. Daniel woke around 3 a.m. Eleanor was still asleep, her head on his chest. He carefully extracted himself, found his phone. 3 missed calls from his neighbor, the emergency contact for Emma. His heart stopped. He called back immediately. Mrs. Chen answered on the first ring. Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry to wake you, but Emma's running a fever. She's asking for you. How high? 102. I gave her children's Tylenol, but she's very uncomfortable. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, started gathering his things. Eleanor stirred. Daniel? Emma's sick. I have to go. Eleanor sat up immediately. How sick? Fever. Probably just a bug, but you need to go, of course. She was already standing. Do you need anything? I can drive you. No, I'm fine. I'll call you later. Daniel. Eleanor caught his hand. Take tomorrow off. Be with her. I have the Henderson meeting. I'll handle it. Your daughter needs you. He kissed her quickly. Thank you. The drive home felt endless. Daniel's mind was racing through worst-case scenarios. Strep throat, flu, something worse. Emma rarely got sick, but when she did, she got it bad. Mrs. Chen met him at the door. Emma was curled up on his bed, pale and shivering despite the blankets. Hey, baby, Daniel said softly, sitting beside her. Daddy? Her voice was small and scratchy. My throat hurts. He pressed his hand to her forehead. Hot. Definitely hot. I know, sweetheart. We're going to make you feel better. He spent the rest of the night alternating between cold compresses and fever medication. Emma drifted in and out of sleep, occasionally waking up to cry that everything hurt. By morning, her fever had climbed to 103.8. Daniel called the pediatrician. They got an appointment for 9 a.m. Strep the throat, the doctor confirmed. Highly contagious, very painful, but treatable with antibiotics. Emma would need to stay home for at least 48 hours. Back at the apartment, Daniel set her up on the couch with blankets, juice, and her favorite stuffed octopus. Then he sent Eleanor a text. Strep throat. Going to be out a few days. Her response came immediately. Take care of her. Don't worry about work. Emma dozed on and off throughout the day. When she was awake, Daniel read to her, put on movies, made soup she could barely swallow. By evening, the antibiotics were starting to kick in, and her fever was dropping. Daddy? Emma's voice was still rough. Yeah, baby? Are you dating Eleanor? Daniel nearly dropped the thermometer. What? Eleanor, from your work. Are you dating her? Why would you ask that? Emma gave him a look that was way too knowing for 7 years old. Because you smile at your phone now, and you've been happy, and you don't talk about her like she's just your boss. Daniel sat down, trying to figure out how to navigate this conversation. Would it bother you if I was? Emma considered this seriously. Is she nice to you? Very nice. Does she make you happy? Yes? Then it's okay. Emma snuggled deeper into her blankets. I liked her. She listened when I talked about octopuses. That's true. She did. Mommy would want you to be happy. The words hit Daniel square in the chest. You think so? Yeah. She told me before she died. She said you were going to be sad for a while, but eventually you'd be happy again, and that was okay. Daniel's eyes burned. She said that to you? Mm-hmm. She said you were really good at loving people, and you'd find someone else to love when you were ready. Emma looked at him. Are you ready? Daniel thought about Eleanor, about how terrified he'd been to feel anything again, about how she'd somehow slipped past every defense he'd built. Yeah, he said quietly. I think I am. Good. Emma yawned. Can I meet her again? Like, not at a restaurant, just normal. You want her to come here? Yeah. I want to see if she's real nice or just restaurant nice. Daniel laughed. Okay, I'll ask her. Emma fell asleep a few minutes later. Daniel sat there, watching her breathe, thinking about Sarah's words, about permission he hadn't realized he needed. He texted Eleanor. Emma wants to know if you'd come over sometime. No fancy restaurant, just us. The response took a few minutes. I'd like that. She's testing you. Wants to see if you're real nice or just restaurant nice. Smart kid. Takes after her mom and her dad. Daniel smiled at his phone. Tomorrow the board would vote. Tomorrow Eleanor might lose everything she'd built. Tomorrow 100 complications would still be waiting. But tonight his daughter was on the mend, and the woman he was falling for had just agreed to step into his real life. The messy, complicated, beautiful real life. That night felt impossibly long. Daniel sat in the armchair watching Emma sleep, checking her temperature every hour, like some kind of ritual that might keep the fever from coming back. Around 2 a.m., his phone lit up with a text from Eleanor. Can't sleep, how is she? Daniel typed back. Better. Fever's down to 99, she's resting. And how are you? He stared at the question for a long moment. Scared. Every time she gets sick, I remember Sarah in the hospital. I know it's not the same, but my brain doesn't care. That's not irrational. That's just love. Doesn't feel productive. Love rarely is. Daniel smiled despite himself. Shouldn't you be sleeping? Big day tomorrow. I said I can't sleep, not that I haven't tried. Want to talk about it? The response took several minutes. I keep running through every possible outcome, every argument I could make, every way it could go wrong. Classic Eleanor. Is that a bad thing? No, just very you. Another pause, then, I'm terrified, Daniel. I built this company from nothing, and tomorrow a bunch of men in expensive suits get to decide if I'm still worthy of running it. Daniel wished he could reach through the phone and hold her. You know what Emma asked me tonight? What? If you were dating, said she could tell because I smile at my phone now. Smart kid. I told her yes. Hope that's okay. What did she say? That as long as you're nice to me and make me happy, she approves. Then she invited you over to test if you're real nice or just restaurant nice. There's a difference? Apparently. 7-year-old logic. When does she want me to come over? Whenever you're ready. No pressure. How about Saturday? After the vote. Whatever happens, I'll need the distraction. You sure? Daniel, I just spent 3 paragraphs spiraling about my career. Your daughter testing my niceness sounds refreshing. He laughed quietly, careful not to wake Emma. Saturday it is. Fair warning, though. Our apartment is small and nothing fancy. Good. I'm tired of fancy. They texted back and forth until almost 4 a.m. About nothing important. Movies they'd seen, books they'd read, the weird things Emma had said recently, normal things, human things. The kind of conversation that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or board votes or corporate politics. When Daniel finally fell asleep in the chair, his phone was still in his hand. Emma woke up around 7, fever completely gone, demanding pancakes. Daniel took it as a good sign. Sick. Emma didn't demand anything. You look tired, she observed, poking at her breakfast. Couldn't sleep. Were you watching me all night? Maybe. Dad, I'm fine. It's just strep. I know. Mom used to tell you that too, didn't she? When you worried too much. Daniel paused mid-pour of his coffee. How do you remember that? You were so young. Emma shrugged. I remember some things, like how she'd laugh when you freaked out about little stuff. She'd say you had an overactive imagination. She was right. Yeah, but she said it nice, like it was a good thing. Emma took a bite of pancake. She'd like Eleanor, I think. The statement caught Daniel completely off guard. Why do you say that? Because Eleanor's strong. Mom likes strong people. She always said weak people made her tired. Daniel had to look away for a second. Sarah had said exactly that, usually after dealing with someone who couldn't make a decision or take responsibility. She'd valued strength, honesty, directness, all things Eleanor had in spades. Yeah, he said quietly. I think she would have liked her too. When's Eleanor coming over? Saturday. If you're feeling better? I'll be better by then. The doctor said 48 hours and it's already been like 12. Emma's math was optimistic, but Daniel didn't correct her. Can we make cookies? I want to see if she likes baking. You want to test if she can bake? No, I want to see if she'll bake with me, even if she's not good at it. That tells you stuff about people. Daniel studied his daughter, wondering when exactly she'd gotten so wise. Okay, we can make cookies. Chocolate chip? Is there any other kind? Emma grinned, and Daniel felt some of the tension from the last few days ease. She was okay. They were okay. Everything else he could handle. He spent the rest of the day working from home, while Emma alternated between naps and watching cartoons. His phone kept buzzing with work emails, but nothing from Eleanor. She was probably in pre-meeting hell, preparing for the board vote. Around 4 p.m., his phone finally rang. Eleanor's name lit up the screen. Hey, Daniel answered. Hey. Her voice sounded strained. Can you talk? Yeah, Emma's asleep. What's wrong? I just got out of a pre-vote meeting with Crawford and 3 other board members. They basically told me the decision's already been made. The vote tomorrow is just theater. Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. They can't do that. They can. They are. Crawford said they'll offer me a generous severance package in exchange for a quiet exit. No fuss, no public drama, just a press release about pursuing other opportunities. What did you tell them? I told them to go to hell. Eleanor laughed, but it was hollow. Not in those words, but close enough. Good. Is it though? Because now, instead of a quiet exit, I'm forcing a public vote that I'm going to lose. And when I lose, I look like someone who can't read the room, who doesn't know when to bow out gracefully. Or you look like someone who doesn't give up without a fight. Daniel, I appreciate the support, but this is over. I've been outmaneuvered and I didn't see it coming. That's on me. So what, you're just going to accept it? I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. I'm tired of fighting, tired of proving myself, tired of being the only woman in rooms full of men who think I don't belong there. Her voice cracked slightly. Maybe they're right. Maybe I've been holding on too tight to something that doesn't want me anymore. Eleanor, listen to me. Those men are terrified of you. You know why? Because you're better than them and they know it. They're not pushing you out because you're failing. They're pushing you out because you make them look bad just by existing. That's a nice theory. It's not a theory. It's the truth. You've grown this company beyond anything they could have done. You've maintained integrity when they wanted to cut corners. You've built something that actually matters instead of just extracting profit. That scares them. Scares them enough to fire me, apparently. Then make them do it publicly. Don't give them the easy out. Make them vote you out on the record so everyone can see exactly what they're doing. That's career suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only move that lets you leave with your dignity intact. Eleanor exhaled slowly. When did you become the wise one? I'm not wise. I'm just stubborn. And I care about you too much to watch you give up without a fight. Even if the fight's already lost? Especially then. Because how you lose matters just as much as whether you win. She was quiet again, and Daniel could practically hear her thinking, processing, calculating odds and outcomes like she always did. Okay, Eleanor said finally. Okay, I'll fight it, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. When this blows up, and it will blow up, you distance yourself from me. Tell HR we were just colleagues. Tell people I kept you at arm's length. Whatever you need to say to protect your career. I'm not doing that. Daniel, I'm not abandoning you to save myself. That's not who I am. Then you're an idiot. Probably, but I'm your idiot, so you're stuck with me. Eleanor made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I don't deserve you. Yeah, you do. You just don't believe it yet. They talked for another hour, Eleanor gradually sounding less defeated and more like herself. By the time they hung up, she had a plan. It probably wouldn't work, but at least she'd go down swinging. Friday morning, Daniel dropped Emma back at school. She'd begged to go, fever-free and bored at home, and headed to the office. The energy was weird, everyone whispering in clusters, shooting glances toward the executive floor. Word had gotten out about the vote. Daniel kept his head down and worked. He had projects to finish, reports to file, normal things that needed doing regardless of what happened upstairs. But every time his phone buzzed, his heart jumped. At 2 p.m., his office phone rang. Eleanor's assistant. Mr. Hayes, Miss Vance would like to see you in her office. Now? Yes, please. Daniel took the elevator up, pulse hammering. Eleanor's office door was open. She was standing at her window, hands clasped behind her back, looking out at the city. Close the door, she said without turning around. He closed it. The vote's in an hour. I wanted to see you first. Eleanor, let me finish. She turned to face him. She looked composed, almost calm. Whatever happens today, I want you to know something. Meeting you, getting to know you and Emma, these past few months, they've reminded me why I built this company in the first place. It wasn't about power or money or proving people wrong. It was about creating something good, something that mattered. You did create that. Maybe. But somewhere along the way, I forgot how to see it. I got so focused on defending what I'd built that I stopped appreciating it. She crossed to her desk, picked up a folder. This is your promotion. Director of Operations, effective immediately. Regardless of what happens to me, you've earned this. Daniel took the folder but didn't open it. You're talking like you've already lost. I'm being realistic. The board's made their decision. The vote is just formality. So change their minds. In an hour, with what ammunition? The truth. Your record. The fact that this company would be half what it is without you. Eleanor smiled sadly. The truth doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Not in boardrooms. Then make it matter. Before she could respond, her assistant knocked. Miss Vance, they're ready for you? Eleanor straightened her jacket, rolled her shoulders back. The vulnerability from moments ago disappeared, replaced by the armor Daniel had first seen months ago. CEO Eleanor. Untouchable Eleanor. Wish me luck, she said. You don't need luck, you've got the truth. She kissed him quickly. A risk, given where they were, but she did it anyway. Then she walked out, shoulders square, ready for battle. Daniel waited in her office. He had no idea if he was supposed to stay or go, but leaving felt wrong. He sat in one of her chairs and stared at his phone, watching the minutes crawl by. 45 minutes later, Eleanor's assistant appeared in the doorway, face pale. Mr. Hayes, you should probably come with me. Daniel's stomach dropped. What happened? Just come, please. He followed her to the boardroom. The door was open. Inside, he could see board members filing out, expressions carefully neutral. Crawford walked past without acknowledging him. Eleanor was still inside, alone, gathering papers with mechanical precision. Her hands weren't shaking, but they might as well have been. Eleanor? She looked up. Her face was blank, carefully constructed neutrality that told Daniel everything he needed to know. They voted you out. 7-4, very democratic of them. Her voice was steady, professional. I have 60 days to transition out. They're bringing in James Peterman as interim CEO. He starts Monday. James Peterman? The guy who ran Henderson Corp into the ground? The very same. Apparently his willingness to prioritize shareholder returns over employee welfare makes him an excellent choice. Eleanor closed her briefcase with a decisive snap. I need to go. Let me drive you. I'm fine. Eleanor? I said I'm fine. But her voice cracked on the last word, betraying her. Daniel stepped closer, lowered his voice. You don't have to be fine right now. Not with me. For a moment he thought she might actually break, might let the armor crack and the real grief show through. Instead, she took a breath, visibly pulled herself together. I'll see you tomorrow. At your apartment. We're making cookies with Emma, remember? You don't have to come if... I want to come. I need to be around people who don't see me as a quarterly earnings report. She managed a weak smile. Besides, I made a commitment to a 7-year-old. That's legally binding. I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. Close enough. She walked out, back straight, face composed. Daniel watched her go, feeling completely helpless. He wanted to chase after her, wanted to fix this somehow, wanted to make it right. But there was nothing to fix. The board had made their choice. Eleanor's career at the company she'd built was over. He went back to his office, closed the door, and stared at the promotion folder she'd given him. Director of Operations at a company that was about to be run by a man who destroyed his last business. The irony was not lost on him. His phone buzzed, a text from Emma's school. Early dismissal today due to teacher planning. Can you pick up at 1 p.m.? Daniel checked the time. 12:40. He grabbed his jacket and left, grateful for an excuse to get out of the building. Emma was waiting on the front steps when he pulled up, backpack dragging behind her. You're early, she said, climbing into the car. So are you. Teacher stuff, we get a half day. She buckled herself in, studying his face. You look sad. Did something bad happen? Daniel pulled out of the parking lot, trying to figure out how to explain corporate politics to a 7-year-old. Eleanor lost her job today. What? Why? Because sometimes people make unfair decisions. The people in charge decided they wanted someone else to run the company. But she's good at her job. You said so. She is. That doesn't always matter. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Is she sad? Yeah, I think she is. Is she still coming tomorrow? She says she is. Good, because I made her a card. Emma pulled a folded piece of paper from her backpack. Mrs. Ramirez let me work on it during art time. Daniel glanced over. The card had a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall one, a medium one, and a small one. Above them, Emma had written in careful letters, "Thank you for being nice to my dad." His throat tightened. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Do you think she'll like it? I think she'll love it. They spent the afternoon together. Normal things. Homework at the kitchen table, snacks, a walk to the park. Emma chattered about school drama, who'd gotten in trouble, which boy had cooties, whether Mr. Whiskers the hamster was actually a girl hamster because someone said they saw babies. Daniel listened, letting her voice fill the spaces where his thoughts wanted to spiral. This was what mattered. Not boardrooms or votes or corporate power plays. Just this. His daughter, alive and healthy and happy, telling him about hamster gender confusion. That night, after Emma went to bed, Daniel opened his laptop and started researching. James Peterman's history, his track record, what happened at Henderson Corp before it collapsed. What he found made his blood run cold. Peterman had a pattern. Come in, slash costs, boost short-term profits, make shareholders happy. Then, usually within 18 months, the whole thing would fall apart. Departments gutted, quality plummeting, employees jumping ship. He'd done it 3 times now, and the board had just handed him Eleanor's company. Daniel pulled up his personal email and started writing. He didn't have a plan exactly, but he had documentation, numbers, evidence of what Peterman had done before and what he'd likely do again. He sent copies to himself, to his personal cloud storage, to an encrypted drive. If this company was going to implode, at least he'd have proof that someone saw it coming. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Emma was up early, bouncing with nervous energy about Eleanor's visit. What time is she coming? 2 o'clock. That's forever away. It's 4 hours. Like I said, forever. Emma went to check the cookies' ingredients for the 3rd time. Do we have enough chocolate chips? We bought extra yesterday, remember? But what if we need more than extra? Daniel pulled her into a hug. We'll be fine. She's going to love whatever we make. How do you know? Because you're making it. That's enough. Emma squirmed out of his grip. You're being mushy. I'm your dad. Mushy is my job. At exactly 2 p.m., the buzzer rang. Emma ran to answer it, practically vibrating with excitement. Eleanor's voice came through the intercom, slightly crackly. Hi, Emma. It's Eleanor. Come up. We're on the 3rd floor. Daniel opened the apartment door and waited. He heard Eleanor's footsteps on the stairs. She'd probably taken them instead of the tiny elevator. Then she appeared, wearing jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her, also looking exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that came from crying all night and pretending you hadn't. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Emma launched herself at Eleanor's legs, hugging her before anyone could say anything else. Eleanor looked startled for half a second, then softened, resting a hand on Emma's head. "Thank you for coming," Emma said seriously. "Dad told me about your job. I'm sorry those people were mean." Eleanor crouched down to Emma's level. "Thank you, sweetheart, but I'm okay. Sometimes things don't work out the way we want. That's what Dad says when I don't make the soccer team." "Your dad sounds wise." "He's okay." Emma grabbed Eleanor's hand. "Come on, we're making cookies. Do you know how to bake?" "A little, but I'm probably rusty." "That's fine. I'll teach you." Daniel watched Emma drag Eleanor into their tiny kitchen, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. This woman had lost everything yesterday, and here she was, letting his 7-year-old boss her around about cookie recipes. The next hour was chaos in the best way. Emma insisted on measuring everything herself, which resulted in flour everywhere. Eleanor tried to help and somehow got chocolate on her cheek. Daniel took a picture when she wasn't looking. "These are going to be the best cookies ever," Emma declared, shoving the tray in the oven. "I don't know," Eleanor said. "We might have used salt instead of sugar in that batch." Emma's eyes went wide. "Did we?" "No, I'm kidding. They'll be perfect." While the cookies baked, Emma pulled out her card. "I made this for you." Eleanor opened it carefully, reading the words, studying the drawing. Her eyes got bright, and for a second Daniel thought she might actually cry. "This is the nicest thing anyone's given me in a long time," Eleanor said quietly. "Thank you, Emma." "You're welcome. Do you like the drawing?" "I love it. Is this us?" "Yeah, you and Dad and me." Emma pointed to each figure. "See, you're tall because you're a grown-up. Dad's medium, and I'm small, but I'll be tall someday." "I'm sure you will be." The cookies came out perfect, or perfect enough for a 7-year-old's standards. They sat at Daniel's tiny kitchen table eating them warm, Emma talking nonstop about school and hamsters and her upcoming birthday. Eleanor listened to all of it, asked questions, engaged like Emma was the most interesting person in the world. And maybe in that moment, she was. After Emma excused herself to play in her room, Eleanor and Daniel moved to the couch. The apartment felt quiet suddenly, intimate. "How are you really?" Daniel asked. Eleanor leaned her head on his shoulder. "I don't know. I keep waiting to feel something, angry, sad, relieved, but mostly I just feel numb." "That's normal. It's only been a day. I spent 23 years building that company, and now someone else gets to run it into the ground while I watch from the sidelines. So, don't watch. Build something else." Eleanor lifted her head to look at him. "What?" "You built one company from nothing. You could do it again." "I'm 54 years old, Daniel. Nobody's going to back a 54-year-old woman with a failed leadership history." "Failed? You grew revenue by 40%. The only thing you failed at was tolerating assholes. That's a pretty critical business skill. Or maybe it's the thing that would make your next venture actually different." Eleanor was quiet, considering. "You really think I could start over?" "I think you could do anything you set your mind to. The question is, what do you actually want? Not what you think you should want. What would make you happy?" She didn't answer right away. Just sat there, staring at the wall with her drawings and Emma's artwork, the life Daniel had built that was small but whole. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've been so focused on holding on to what I had, I never thought about what I actually want." "Then maybe now's the time to figure it out." Emma wandered back in, dragging her stuffed octopus. "Can Eleanor stay for dinner?" "That's up to Eleanor," Daniel said. Eleanor smiled. "I'd love to." They ordered pizza, the good kind from Emma's favorite place, ate it on the couch while watching a nature documentary about ocean creatures. Emma fell asleep halfway through, curled up between them. "She likes you," Daniel said quietly. "I like her too. She's remarkable." "She is. Gets it from her mom." "And her dad." They sat there as the documentary played, Emma snoring softly, the rain pattering against the windows. It wasn't glamorous or exciting, just real, human, Simple in a way Eleanor's life had never been. "This is nice," Eleanor said eventually. "Yeah?" "Yeah. I can't remember the last time I just existed, without agenda or strategy or 10 things I should be doing instead. Welcome to my world. I like your world." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "It's yours too if you want it." Eleanor didn't respond, but she laced her fingers through his and held on tight. Eleanor left around 9 after they'd carried Emma to bed and stood in the doorway watching her sleep like concerned parents. It felt natural, that moment, like they'd done it 100 times before. "Thank you for today," Eleanor said at the door. "I needed this more than I realized." "You're welcome here any time, you know that, right?" "I'm starting to." She kissed him softly. "I'll see you Monday?" "You're going back to the office?" "I have 60 days to transition. Might as well use them productively." Her smile was thin. "Besides, I'm not going to hide. That would give Crawford too much satisfaction." Daniel watched her walk down the stairs, heard her car start, stood at the window until her taillights disappeared. Then he went to his laptop and pulled up the Peterman research again, reading late into the night. Monday morning felt like walking into a funeral. The office was subdued, people speaking in hushed tones, avoiding eye contact. News of Eleanor's departure had spread over the weekend. So had rumors about Peterman. Daniel dropped Emma at school and headed in early, stopping by Eleanor's office before most people arrived. She was already there, surrounded by boxes, systematically packing up 23 years of her life. "You're here early," she said without looking up. "So are you." "Couldn't sleep, figured I might as well be productive." She held up a framed photo, her at the company's 10th anniversary, younger, smiling. "I don't even remember this day. Isn't that sad?" "You've had a lot of days." "Yeah." She set the photo in a box. "Too many spent in this office, apparently." Daniel closed the door. "I need to show you something." He pulled out his phone, showed her the research he'd compiled on Peterman. Eleanor's expression darkened as she read, scrolling through the documented failures, the patterns, the trail of collapsed companies. "Where did you get this?" "Public records mostly, financial filings, news articles. It's all out there if you know where to look." "The board had to have seen this." "They saw what they wanted to see. A guy who boosts short-term profits and doesn't ask uncomfortable questions." Eleanor handed back his phone, her jaw tight. "This company is going to implode within a year." "I know. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm out, Daniel. I have no authority, no leverage, nothing. You have me, and about 40 other people who are going to jump ship the moment Peterman starts his usual routine." Daniel leaned against her desk. "What if we didn't jump ship alone?" Eleanor looked at him sharply. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that instead of watching this company die, we build something better. Take the people who actually care about doing good work, the ones who share your vision, and start fresh." "That's corporate suicide." "We'd be competing directly with Vance Industries." "Would we? Or would we be competing with whatever Peterman turns it into?" Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, and Daniel could see her mind working, calculating risks, running scenarios, the way she always did. "It would take capital, resources, time. You have severance. I have savings. And I bet there are investors who'd back you in a heartbeat. It's insane. Probably, but it's better than watching everything you built get destroyed." Eleanor walked to her window, looking out at the city like she had so many times before. "I'd need people I trust, a core team willing to take the risk. Make a list. I'll talk to them." "Daniel, if you do this, you're burning bridges. Peterman will blacklist you. Other companies will see you as disloyal." "Good. I don't want to work for companies that value loyalty over integrity anyway." She turned to face him, and something in her expression had shifted. The defeat from Friday was gone, replaced by something sharper, determined. "You really think we could do this?" "I think if anyone can, it's you." Eleanor pulled out her phone, started typing notes. "We'd need to move fast, before Peterman realizes what's happening. I have non-compete clauses, but they're vague enough to work around if we're careful." "So we're doing this?" She looked up at him, and for the first time since the board vote, she smiled for real. "We're doing this." The next 3 weeks were chaos. Eleanor worked out of Daniel's apartment, spreading papers across his kitchen table, making calls while Emma did homework beside her. It should have been cramped and awkward. Instead, it felt right. Daniel reached out to people quietly. Sarah Chen from finance, Marcus Wells from operations. 15 others who'd been with Eleanor for years, who understood what she'd built and what Peterman would destroy. One by one, they said yes. The meetings happened in coffee shops and parks, anywhere away from the office. Eleanor laid out her vision, a company built on sustainability, employee welfare, long-term growth instead of quarterly profits. No one would get rich quick, but they'd build something that mattered. I can't promise success, Eleanor told them at a meeting in Daniel's living room. A dozen people crammed into a space meant for 3. I can't even promise stability for the first year. What I can promise is that we'll do this right. No shortcuts, no compromising our values for profit. When do we start? Sarah asked. 2 weeks? I'll have the LLC filed by then. Office space secured. Basic infrastructure in place. What are we calling it? Eleanor glanced at Daniel, then at Emma's drawings covering his refrigerator. Second Chance Solutions. Emma loved having people over. She'd set up her stuffed animals in a row and give them meetings while the adults talked, mimicking Eleanor's serious tone. Eleanor would catch her doing it and struggle not to laugh. You know she's making fun of you, right? Daniel said one evening after everyone had left. She's observing. There's a difference. Eleanor was at his table reviewing incorporation documents. Besides, she does a better version of me than I do. That's mildly terrifying. Your daughter is smarter than both of us. We should be worried. Daniel brought her tea, kissed the top of her head. You should sleep. You've been at this for 14 hours. Can't. Need to finalize the investor deck. Eleanor, I'm fine. You're exhausted. She looked up at him, and he saw the circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. If I stop moving, I'll think about how insane this is, how we're risking everything on a plan we came up with in 3 weeks, how this could fail spectacularly and take everyone down with us. Daniel pulled up a chair beside her. Or it could work, and you could build something even better than before. Always the optimist. Someone has to be. You've cornered the market on worst-case scenarios. Eleanor leaned against him. What if I let everyone down? All these people are trusting me with their careers, their families, their futures. Then you do what you always do. You work harder than anyone else. You make the tough calls. You lead. And if that's not enough, then we figure it out together. But Eleanor, you need to hear this. You're not alone anymore. You've got a whole team. You've got me. Stop trying to carry everything by yourself. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed her laptop. Okay. Okay? I'll sleep, but just for a few hours. She curled up on Daniel's couch and was unconscious within minutes. Daniel covered her with a blanket, dimmed the lights, and went to check on Emma. His daughter was still awake, reading by flashlight under her covers. You're supposed to be asleep, Daniel whispered. So is Eleanor. She just fell asleep on the couch. Good, she works too much. Emma set down her book. Dad, are you and Eleanor going to get married? Daniel nearly choked. What? Why would you ask that? Because she's here all the time, and you look at each other the way people do in movies before they get married. We're just dating, sweetheart. Marriage that's a big step. Do you love her? The question caught him completely off guard. Did he love Eleanor? He cared about her, worried about her, wanted to be around her. But love? I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe. It's complicated. Grown-ups always say that when the answer is yes, but they're scared. Emma snuggled into her pillow. I think you should marry her. Then she could live here and we could make cookies whenever we want. That's your criteria for marriage, cookie accessibility. And she makes you happy. That's important too. Daniel kissed her forehead. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just noticed. He laughed quietly. Go to sleep, wise one. Okay, but think about what I said. Daniel went back to the living room. Eleanor was still asleep, one hand tucked under her cheek, looking younger and more vulnerable than she ever did awake. Did he love her? Maybe Emma was right. Maybe the answer was yes, and he was just scared to admit it. The office drama hit during week 4. Peterman started making changes, cutting benefits, restructuring departments, exactly like he'd done at his previous companies. People started resigning in clusters. The ones Eleanor and Daniel had recruited left with professional 2-week notices. The others just walked out. Daniel's resignation letter was simple, effective immediately, citing irreconcilable differences with new management. He didn't mention Eleanor, didn't mention second chance, just left. Peterman called him into his office on his last day, a man in his 60s with slicked back hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. "I'm disappointed, Hayes. Eleanor spoke highly of you. I'm disappointed too. This company used to mean something." "It means profit. That's what companies are for." "No, that's what you think companies are for. Some of us believe they can be more than that." Peterman's smile hardened. "You'll regret this. Walking away from a guaranteed paycheck to chase some idealistic fantasy with a washed-up CEO." Daniel stood. "Eleanor Vance built something you could never dream of creating, and she'll do it again, but thanks for the career advice." He walked out, boxed up his desk, and didn't look back. Eleanor had secured office space in a renovated warehouse across town, all exposed brick and big windows. It was a fraction of the size of Vance Industries, but it was theirs. The first day, 16 people showed up. By the end of the week, 23. They spent the first month in controlled chaos, building systems, pitching clients, working 18-hour days. Eleanor was everywhere at once, problem-solving, strategizing, actually listening to people's ideas instead of just dictating orders. "This is different," Sarah said one afternoon, watching Eleanor collaborate with the design team. "The old Eleanor would have just told them what to do." "New company, new approach," Daniel said. Or new Eleanor. Maybe both, Daniel thought. Their first client was a small manufacturing firm, nothing glamorous. But Eleanor treated them like they were Fortune 500, gave them the same attention and care she'd given her biggest accounts. Word spread. 2 more clients. Then 5. Then 10. 3 months in, they were breaking even. 6 months, turning a profit. And Vance Industries was hemorrhaging. Peterman's cost-cutting had gutted morale. Their biggest accounts were leaving. Stock prices were dropping. Everything Eleanor had predicted was happening exactly on schedule. "Does it feel good?" Daniel asked one night, reading the news about Vance's latest quarterly loss. "Being right?" Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "No, it feels sad. That was my legacy, and he's destroying it." "So buy it back." She looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "What?" "The stock price is tanking. The board is panicking. In 6 months, that company will be desperate for someone to save it. Someone with a proven track record. Someone who knows exactly how to fix what's broken." "Daniel, we don't have that kind of capital." "Not yet. But we have momentum, investors who believe in us, and 6 months to make our case." He pulled up a spreadsheet he'd been working on. "We could structure a buyout. Take on some debt, sure, but it's doable." Eleanor stared at the numbers, and he could see her mind working through the possibilities. "That's insane," she said finally. "Yeah, but so was starting Second Chance, and look how that turned out." She kissed him hard, sudden, and fierce. "I love the way your brain works." "Yeah? Yeah." Then she paused. "Actually, I just love you. Brain included." Daniel's heart stopped. "What?" "I love you. I should have said it weeks ago, but I was scared. I'm still scared. But Emma's right. Grown-ups say it's complicated when the answer is yes and they're terrified." "Emma said that to you?" "No, I overheard her tell you. The walls in your apartment are thin." Eleanor smiled. "So, are you going to leave me hanging here?" "I love you too. Even when you work too hard and forget to eat and try to solve every problem by yourself. Those are some of my best qualities." "I know." They kissed again, slower this time. Real, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise. The next 6 months were a blur. Second Chance grew steadily, carefully. Eleanor built relationships instead of just chasing contracts. She created a culture where people actually wanted to work, where parents could leave for school pickups without guilt, where integrity mattered more than quarterly earnings. And she started showing up at Emma's school events, soccer games, science fairs, parent-teacher conferences where Mrs. Ramirez would smile knowingly at Daniel. "She's good for you," Mrs. Ramirez said one afternoon. "Both of you are happier." "Yeah, we are." Emma had taken to calling Eleanor by her first name without the formality, treating her like family. They had inside jokes about octopuses. Eleanor taught Emma chess. Emma taught Eleanor about Pokemon. It was organic and easy and completely unexpected. By month 8, Vance Industries stock had dropped 40%. The board was in full panic mode. Peterman was making noise about market corrections and temporary setbacks, but everyone knew the truth. The company was dying. Eleanor's proposal came together over a long weekend. Daniel, Sarah, and 3 others worked around the clock, building financial models, outlining transition plans, preparing for every possible objection. On Monday, Eleanor walked into Crawford's office unannounced. "We need to talk," she said. Crawford looked up from his desk, older and more tired than Daniel remembered. "Eleanor, this is unexpected. I have a proposal. Second Chance Solutions will acquire Vance Industries. We'll assume the debt, restructure operations, restore the company to profitability." Crawford actually laughed. "You can't be serious." "Completely serious. Here's our offer." She slid the proposal across his desk. "Read it. Run it by your analysts. You'll see the math works." "Even if it did, the board would never approve. The board is desperate. You've lost 60% of your value in less than a year. Major accounts are leaving. Employees are quitting in droves. You need someone who can fix this, and we both know I'm the only one who can." Crawford read through the proposal, his expression shifting from dismissive to actually considering it. "This would require significant board approval, shareholder votes." "I'm aware. That's why I'm giving you 3 weeks to make it happen. After that, the offer expires and you can watch Peterman finish destroying everything." She walked out, leaving Crawford with the proposal and probably an ulcer. Daniel was waiting in the car outside. "How'd it go?" "Either brilliantly or I just committed professional suicide. Hard to tell." "Smart money's on brilliantly." Eleanor laughed, some of the tension releasing. "I hope you're right." The next 3 weeks were excruciating, waiting for the board to respond, for shareholders to weigh in, for lawyers to work through the details. Eleanor tried to stay focused on Second Chance, but Daniel could see her checking her phone constantly. Emma noticed too. One evening, she climbed into Eleanor's lap while Eleanor was reviewing contracts at Daniel's table. "You're worried," Emma said. "A little." "About the big company thing? How do you know about that?" "I listen. Dad says I'm nosy, but I prefer observant." Emma settled against Eleanor's shoulder. "It's going to work out." "How do you know?" "Because you're really smart and you work really hard. And also because Dad believes in you, and he's usually right about people." Eleanor hugged her tighter. "When did you become the wise one?" "I've always been wise. Everyone just noticed." Daniel watched them from the kitchen, his heart doing that complicated thing again. This was his life now. His daughter in the arms of the woman he loved, both of them completely at ease with each other. A family that had assembled itself piece by piece when he wasn't looking. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, Crawford's assistant asking Eleanor to come to the office for an emergency board meeting. "Is this good or bad?" Eleanor asked Daniel, gathering her things. "Only one way to find out." "Come with me." "Eleanor, I'm not even—" "You're my partner in business and life. I want you there." They drove in silence, Eleanor's hand tight in his. The board was assembled when they arrived, all serious faces and expensive suits. Crawford stood at the head of the table. "Ms. Vance, Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming." He gestured to empty chairs. "Please, sit." They sat. Eleanor's face was perfectly composed, but Daniel could feel her tension. "We've reviewed your proposal extensively," Crawford continued, "consulted with analysts, financial advisors, our legal team. It's ambitious, some might say overly so." "But feasible," Eleanor said. "Yes, feasible." Crawford glanced at the other board members. "Which is why we're prepared to accept, with conditions." Eleanor's expression didn't change. "What conditions?" "You return as CEO, but you report to a restructured board with oversight on major decisions. No more unilateral moves." "I can live with that." James Peterman is terminated immediately. You handle the transition personally. With pleasure. And finally, this company gets renamed. Second Chance acquires Vance Industries, but the combined entity moves forward under a new banner. No more ego, no more legacy, something that represents what we're building going forward. Eleanor looked at Daniel. He could see her processing, calculating whether this was worth it. "What do you think?" she asked him quietly. "I think the name never mattered. The work does." She turned back to Crawford. "Agreed. We'll rebrand." Crawford actually smiled. "Then welcome back, Ms. Vance. You have a lot of work ahead of you." "When don't I?" The paperwork took another month. Legal reviews, shareholder votes, regulatory approvals. But it went through. Second Chance Solutions acquired what was left of Vance Industries, merged the teams, and emerged as something new. They called it Horizon Partners. Eleanor's idea. Because they were always looking forward, never back. The first day in the new office, the old Vance Industries building, now repurposed and restructured, Eleanor stood in her old office with Daniel beside her. "Feels different," she said. "Because it is different. You're different." "Better or worse?" "Better. Definitely better." Eleanor's new team was a mix of Second Chance veterans and Vance employees who'd survived Peterman's tenure. The culture shifted immediately. Flexible hours, real parental leave, profit sharing, all the things Eleanor had wanted to implement years ago, but the old board had blocked. Within 6 months, Horizon Partners had stabilized. Within a year, they were growing. The clients came back. The reputation rebuilt. Not as the company Eleanor had founded, but as something better, something sustainable. And through it all, Daniel was beside her, not as an employee anymore, but as an equal partner. Co-COO, though the title mattered less than the work. Emma thrived. Her 8th birthday party was at the new office, Eleanor's idea. 50 kids running through the halls, playing in conference rooms, eating cake in the break room. It should have been chaos. Instead, it felt exactly right. "You know what I like most about this?" Eleanor said, watching Emma show her friends around like she owned the place. "What?" "It's not just mine anymore, it belongs to all of us, and that makes it stronger." Daniel pulled her close. "Speaking of things that belong to us," he pulled out a small box. Eleanor's eyes went wide. "Daniel Hayes, are you proposing in our office during our daughter's birthday party?" "Yeah, I am." He opened the box, revealing a simple ring. "It's not fancy, but neither are we. Eleanor Vance, will you marry me and make our ridiculous, chaotic, perfect life official?" Eleanor laughed, and it was the freest sound Daniel had ever heard from her. "Emma's going to be insufferable. She predicted this months ago." "Is that a yes?" "Of course it's a yes." She kissed him in front of 58-year-olds, who immediately started screaming and making gagging noises. Emma pushed through the crowd. "I told you!" she shouted. "I told Dad to marry you." "Did he tell you I said that?" "He did," Eleanor said, crouching down. "You were right." "I'm always right. You should listen to me more." "Deal." Emma hugged them both, and Daniel realized this was the moment, the one he'd been building toward without knowing it. Not the proposal or the company's success or any single achievement, just this. His daughter and the woman he loved, surrounded by people who cared about them, building something that mattered. His life wasn't falling apart anymore. It had been rebuilt into something stronger, warmer, and finally whole. 6 months later, they got married in the park where Eleanor used to go when she wanted to quit. Small ceremony. Emma as flower girl, wearing the blue dress with flowers and declaring she was the most important person there. She wasn't wrong. Eleanor wore a simple dress, no corporate armor, just herself. Daniel wore a suit that Emma had helped pick out. The whole Second Chance team was there, along with Emma's school friends, Mrs. Ramirez, even some of the Horizon Partners employees. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Emma raised her hand. "I object to how long this took. They should have done this months ago." Everyone laughed. Eleanor leaned down. "Sorry for the delay. Apology accepted, but don't do it again." Deal. They said their vows, simple, honest, real. Daniel promised to remind Eleanor to eat lunch. Eleanor promised to attend every one of Emma's school events. They both promised to build a life together that was messy and imperfect and worth every complicated moment. At the reception, Daniel found Eleanor standing alone for a moment, looking at the crowd. "You okay?" he asked. "More than okay. I'm happy." She said it like she was testing the words. "Actually, genuinely happy. When's the last time I said that?" "Don't know, but I'm glad you can say it now." "Me too." She leaned against him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. Not the CEO or the Ice Queen or whatever else people called me. Just me. Eleanor. Eleanor's my favorite version. Mine too." They danced badly, laughed too loud, ate too much cake. Emma fell asleep on Eleanor's shoulder around 9, and they drove home as a family. Official now, legal, real. Their apartment had gotten bigger. They'd moved to a place with room for all three of them, where Emma's drawings covered the refrigerator and Eleanor's work papers spread across the table and Daniel's coffee mugs accumulated in the sink. It was messy. Imperfect. Exactly right. That night, after tucking Emma in, Daniel and Eleanor stood in their doorway watching her sleep. A habit they'd developed, this ritual of gratitude. "Think she'll let us sleep past 7 tomorrow?" Eleanor whispered. "Not a chance. She's going to want to tell us all about being a flower girl. I wouldn't want it any other way." Neither would Daniel. This life they'd built, it hadn't come easy. Had required trust and risk and choosing each other when it would have been simpler to walk away. But simple wasn't always better. Sometimes the complicated, messy, imperfect thing was exactly what you needed. Eleanor took his hand, and they walked to their own room, their shared space, their future spreading out ahead of them. It wasn't the life Daniel had planned. It was better, because it was real, and it was theirs. And every single complicated, beautiful piece of it mattered. In the living room, Emma's drawing still hung on the wall. 3 stick figures holding hands, a family that had found each other piece by piece, person by person, choice by choice. And underneath, in Emma's careful letters, 3 words that said everything. My family. Complete.